Welcome to Part 4 of Blessed Seraphim Rose's article in defense of Father Dimitry Dudko. By no means all members of the Catacomb Church itself share the extreme views with which Father Dimitry has come into contact there. Metropolitan Cyril of Kazan and other leading hierarchs of the Catacomb Church have regarded it as a blasphemy to deny that the sacraments of the Moscow Patriarchate are grace-filled. An articulate spokesman of the Catacomb Church in the 1960s has stated specifically that he does not condemn the reception of Holy Communion in churches of the Moscow Patriarchate for those unable to endure the catacomb life or find the Catacomb Church. He says, "If the present days were like the days of the Sergius disturbance, I would tell you what I said then. Go to churches which do not have communion with Metropolitan Sergius, but do not go to him and his partisans. But the times have changed. We have no churches now in the USSR, and can we, who have gone into our solitary cells and find there everything which the churches gave us, forbid the thousands of believers who do not have such an opportunity from seeking consolation and spiritual food in the churches that exist, and can we condemn them because they go there?" Many bishops of the Russian Church outside of Russia have said the same thing. One of the staunchest defenders of the Catacomb Church in the Church outside of Russia, Bishop Gregory Grab, Secretary of the Synod of Bishops, notes something that has been mentioned by many others both inside and outside of Russia. Zealots of the true faith in Russia have nurtured within themselves a feeling of a certain type, which alerts then to those of the clergy whom they can find to be true pastors, and to those they find to be otherwise. Thus, people cut off from the Catacomb Church do receive communion from priests of the Moscow Patriarchate whom they can trust. Father Dimitry has described one such incident, quoted above, and we cannot condemn them for this. The Synod of Bishops of the Russian Church outside of Russia, in view of all this, has decreed for all dioceses the commemoration at the proscomedia of Father Dimitry and other imprisoned priests and laymen of the Moscow Patriarchate, and as zealous a hierarch as Archbishop Andrew of Novodivivo commemorated publicly at the great entrance of the liturgy the newly reposed hierarch of the Moscow Patriarchate. Archbishop Germigin, who ended his life in disgrace with the church authorities because he would not accept the dictation of the atheists. None of this changes in the least our basic attitude towards Sergianism is a betrayal of the church, nor does it allow us who are free to enter into communion with the Moscow Patriarchate. But it does persuade us that, far from viewing Father Dimitry and others like him, such as Boris Talentov 10 years ago, as jurisdictional enemies because they do not join the Catacomb Church, we should try to understand better their extremely difficult situation and rejoice that such a genuine Orthodox Christian phenomenon is coming even from the midst of the compromised Moscow Patriarchate. A proof that church life is not dead even there, and a promise that, once the political situation in Russia that produced Sergianism will have changed, a full unity in the faith will be possible with such courageous strugglers as Father Dimitry. We do know that a catacomb bishop showed his concern, from the other world, that Father Dimitry be ordained to the priesthood, even in the Moscow Patriarchate. This was Bishop Parthenius, a vicar of the Odessa diocese, who died in a concentration camp in the 1930s without recognizing Metropolitan Sergius. Once, in the difficult days of 1960 when Dimitry Dudko was despairing of ever being ordained, 2 years had passed since his graduation from the Theological Academy, and he was still regarded with suspicion by the church authorities as an ex-prisoner. The mother of his friend Gleb Yakunin had a dream. Bishop Parthenius was standing fully vested at the table of preparation and told her, "I am taking out a small piece of prosphora for your Mitya, Dimitry. On November 7th he will be a deacon, and a large piece. On November 8th he will be a priest." It happened as Bishop Parthenius had foretold, and from that time Father Dimitry has always commemorated this catacomb bishop at the liturgy as one of his own fathers in the faith. 3. Is Father Dimitry a KGB agent? Yet another criticism of Father Dimitry in the West is that he must be a KGB agent himself, or else he could not have been so free in speaking and writing and even sending his sermons abroad for publication. This is the reward of Father Dimitri's immense labor in confessing the truth of Orthodox Christianity. None but an unloving, unchristian heart could make such a cruel accusation after reading Father Dimitri's obviously suffering and heartfelt words. One can only assume that these critics have not read his writings. Father Dimitry himself, just before his arrest, wrote of his sleepless nights of agony and grief after reading such criticisms in the Russian émigré press. And undoubtedly such criticisms were used by the KGB in their attempt to break Father Dimitry and make him think that even the Orthodox Russians abroad were against him. Few critics abroad, to be sure, have been quite so cruel, but a number of people have been unable to avoid a certain mistrust of him. The Soviets, they think, must have some plan in allowing Father Dimitry to speak so freely. No one aware of Soviet reality can doubt that the schemes of the KGB extend literally everywhere, and that they seek to use the Church and its representatives for their own ends. But let us only reflect for a moment in an orthodox way. Father Dimitry speaks in the spirit of age-old orthodoxy, and he speaks to the heart of the Russian, and not only the Russian, people today. He is very popular among the Orthodox people, and so of course the Soviets would like to use him if they can. They have also sent their agents into the Catacomb Church and have tried to use conservative orthodoxy by having such agents pose as anti-communist traditionalists. Theoretically, therefore, we have a right to distrust anyone who speaks for Russian orthodoxy. But it is one of the tricks of Satan in our times to sow discord and misunderstanding in the midst of Orthodox Christians, and lack of trust for each other. Thank you for listening. Please continue to Part 5.